our all right. Hello, everyone, our honorable guests. Thank you all for joining us today in this webinar titled Leadership in Pharmacy: Navigating Challenges and Inspiring Excellence Education and in Education and Practice. I'm honored to introduce myself. I am Majd Hazar, a pharmacy graduate from the LIU and currently serving as the president of the LIU IVPN Student Club. And my passion for pharmacy education and practice has also led me, sorry, the slide didn't switch. And my passion for pharmacy education and practice has also led me to lead the IVPN Voice Pharmacy Cast. I'm currently in the Lebanese International University in Bekaa, Lebanon. Now, before we start with this webinar, I have a few announcements to make. This webinar is recorded, as Zoom already mentioned, and it will be available on IVPN Network's library. To become a member of the IVPN network, we can have the following link, and to become a member of the LIU IVPN Student Club, mainly for LIU pharmacy students, it's also on the following link. This link will be available in the chat box throughout the webinar and during the end of the webinar. And if you have any questions, you can ask via the Q&A box. Now, I would like to give a small definition to the club. What is LIU IVPN Student Club? It's more than just a regular club, actually. It forges a strong relationship between the Lebanese International University and the greater IVPN network. Our slogan resonates loudly and proudly, empowering future pharmacists for excellence and innovation. Through this club, we come together not only to educate ourselves, but to fuel our collective passion, carve out a path of excellence and innovation that sets us apart from others, actually. So let's embark on the journey together, a journey that extends beyond the classroom, beyond the expected, and propels us into a realm of limitless possibilities. Welcome to the LIU IVPN Student Club, where boundaries are just a mere starting point, and the pursuit of excellence knows no boundaries at all. So I'd like to give a small introduction to the topic. As a club, we are kicking off events with our webinar, Leadership in Pharmacy: Navigating Challenges and Inspiring Excellence in Education and Practice, with our remarkable speaker, Dr. Lucinda May. As you all know, the field of pharmacy encompasses both education and clinical practice, which demands effective leadership that plays a pivotal role in shaping the future of this field. This webinar is designed to empower you as students with the needed skills to be impactful leaders, to navigate complexities of education and practice, and to inspire positive change within the profession. Finally, allow me to introduce the founder of our club that will be moderating this session, Dr. Nasreen Mrad. Dr. Nasreen Mrad is a clinical associate professor at the Lebanese International University, LIU, where she earned her Bachelor of Pharmacy and Doctor of Pharmacy degree. Dr. Mrad also holds a research master degree in pharmaceutical biotechnology from the Lebanese University. She has joined LIU from the year 2011 and is still currently there. Previously, Dr. Mrad was employed as an experiential education coordinator and currently as the chairperson for the Pharmaceutical Sciences Department. In addition, she teaches various courses, among which are pharmaceutics, pharmacokinetics, pharmacotherapeutics, pharmacy practice experience courses. Dr. Mrad has presented in both local and international conferences in fields of academic pharmacy, emergency pharmacy, pharmacoeconomics, community pharmacy, and health and medicines information. Dr. Nasreen Mrad, thank you for moderating this session. You have a hefty experience, mashallah, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much, Majd, for your wonderful introduction. Before we start, I would like to thank the IVPN Network's president, Dr. Osama Tabbara, for his exceptional leadership, support, and guidance, which are immeasurably inspiring and appreciated. I want to thank the IVPN Network as a whole, in particular, Dr. Ahmed Al-Uwaini, Dr. Muhammad Hamdi, Dr. Ahmed Abd Daim, Dr. Ahmed Akkad, and Ms. Misha Muwandi. I want to thank the Lebanese International University School of Pharmacy's Dean, Professor Muhammad Rahal, and the School of Pharmacy for their support and for providing such an inspiring and nurturing environment for us to grow. I want to thank the young, authentic leaders behind the LIU IVPN Student Club. Your passion, commitment, dedication, and hard work is evident, and this what will shape an inshallah bright future for this club. Please, if you can all open the cameras for everyone to see you. I'd like you to meet Dr. Mariam Al-Khatib, the LIU IVPN Students Club Advisory. Mr. Majd Al-Hazar, you already met him, the club's president. Mr. Mohammed Zaitel, Vice President and Head of Promotion Committee. Ms. Mariam Al-Jabali, Head of Organizing Committee. And Ms. Zain Al-Amouri, Head of Media Committee. I want to thank you, your teams, every member in this club, and everyone who was able to join us today. Finally, I want to thank our esteemed speaker, Dr. Lucinda Main, who has honored us today with her presence at our very first webinar. Dr. Lucinda Main is a pharmacy graduate of Auburn University and received her doctorate at the University of Minnesota. She has also received honor degrees from both Western University as well as Ohio Northern University. In her academic career, Dr. Main served on the faculty at the University of Minnesota, where she practiced in the field of geriatric. In addition, she was an associate dean at the Stanford University School of Pharmacy. Dr. Main has been active in leadership roles in and out of the profession. In fact, she served as an executive vice president and CEO of the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy, the AACP, from 2002 until 2022. Prior to that, she served as a senior vice president for policy, planning, and communications with the American Pharmacists Association, the APHA, which was preceded by her serving as a speaker of the APHA House of Delegates and as an APHA trustee. Currently, Dr. Main serves as a board member and vice chair for the American Foundation for Pharmaceutical Education. In addition, she served as a founding board member and current president of the Alliance for Integrated Medication Management. Dr. Main has been honored with several prestigious awards, including the University of Minnesota Outstanding Alumnus Award, the Linwood Ties Friend of APHA ASP Award, the Gloria Niemeyer Frankie Leadership Mentor Award, and the Remington Honor Medal from the American Pharmacists Association. In 2023, Dr. May received the newly renamed Mary Euler National Leadership Award from the Phi Lambda Sigma. And this July, the AACP board awarded her with the AACP CEO Emerita title. After retiring from the AACP, Dr. May continues speaking, writing, and consulting with a variety of entities. Her term for this time in her life is called Preferment, where she, alongside her husband, are fully enjoying lake life on Lake Anna, Virginia. Dr. Main, again, we're incredibly honored and privileged by having you as our guest speaker. Everyone is very excited to hear your talk, so please, the floor, the screen, and the mic, they're all yours.
Well, first and foremost, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for the honor of being the inaugural webinar participant for the club. I have prepared a very short slide deck. We decided that the best format for this would be a quick introduction and then some Q&A that Dr. Murad will oversee, and then we hope that you will have questions that you would like to ask in the time that we have allotted for today. So let's go to my first slide, please. Can someone advance the slide?
I think there's a technical working on it.
There we go. Great. And let's just go in. Yes, let's still go into slide. And I decided that I was going to spend a good couple of minutes taking you through my academic experience that led me to graduate in March of 1980 with a bachelor's degree in pharmacy from Auburn University. Did I grow up knowing I wanted to be a pharmacist? Absolutely not. I was going to be a teacher, and I was going to be an elementary school teacher from the first grade on. I got into the sciences, of course, in high school and really enjoyed biology, probably more than anything else. And it was actually my stepdad, who built submarines for a living, who, as I was going up to freshman orientation back in 1974, said, "Have you ever considered pharmacy?" And I went, "No, not once." And he said, "Well, you should go talk to our pharmacist, Charles Dart, who I don't think I had ever met, because as a 17, 18-year-old healthy person, why would I go to a pharmacy, right?" He was an amazing human being, still is an amazing human being. He was probably 10 years older than I, and was a community pharmacist in the community where we were living at the time in Alabama. And he couldn't say enough about what a fantastic career pharmacy has been for him. And he continues, even though he's well into his 70s now, to do relief pharmacy a couple of days a week. So he loves it so much. He's had a fabulous career. So I went up to orientation. I changed my major to pre-pharmacy. And what I can tell you is I've never looked back. The summer after my freshman year, he hired me to come and work, not the cash register, but to work behind the counter with him. And I grew just absolutely fascinated with medications, would pull the package inserts out of the boxes and try and read them and understand them, which actually was a really good way to prepare to apply to pharmacy school, which I did in the spring of 1976. Had a little bit of experience. I worked in the chemistry lab of the shipyard where my dad worked the summer before I started pharmacy school, and that taught me that I did not want to do that as my career. So I began my P1 year in pharmacy, which was my third year of college, in September of 1976. I was lucky to secure a hospital pharmacy internship that summer, and I should have said that in the spring of my first year, so spring of 1977, I listened to the older students at Auburn and said, "Yes, I'd like to come to the student APHA meeting in New York City in May of 1977. Changed my life. Absolutely changed my life, because they also told me that I should interview with the president-elect for a national committee appointment. And so I did that, meeting Dennis Kimmel, president-elect of Student APHA, who asked me that same day that I met him if I'd ever thought about running for national office. And I said, absolutely not. Well, there's more to that story. So the summer after my first year, I secured a hospital pharmacy internship in Mobile, Alabama, my hometown, which again gave me insights into unit dose, into IV admixtures, and a lot of new skills to take into my second year in pharmacy school. And that was the year you had pharmacology and medicinal chemistry, 3 laboratories every week throughout the entire time, basically, I was in pharmacy school. And I went to my second student APHA meeting. It happened to be in Montreal in May of 1978. And I took Dennis's recommendation to heart, and I ran for national office, student APHA president-elect. There were 4 of us running for office. We got into a runoff with the top 2 contenders. That one happened to become one of my very best friends. I was elected president-elect. She was elected vice president and became president-elect the next year when I was starting my presidential term. The summer of 1978, there was a wonderful pharmacy industry internship program at the time that was coordinated by the National Pharmaceutical Council and Student APHA. And I was selected to go to Kalamazoo, Michigan to be an industry intern at Upjohn that summer between my P2 year and my P3 year. Now, there was a wrinkle in that P3 year because you had to be a student to serve as student APHA president-elect and president. And I was scheduled to graduate at the end of May of 1979. And so what we did with the help of my advisor at school was split my P3 year into 2. And I took some pre-MBA courses to fill out my full-time student schedule alongside a somewhat lesser number of pharmacy courses during this period of time. In May of 1979 in Anaheim, California, I was installed as student APHA president, and totally all of these experiences just took my blinders off to all of the opportunities that exist in pharmacy then, which were relatively limited in comparison to the opportunities that are awaiting those of you who are going to be graduating into pharmacy soon, and some of you already have. So the last summer I had, before I finished my last 2 quarters at Auburn, I served as a co-step intern in the Indian Health Service, working in the office of the director of pharmacy of the IHS, who was a visionary leader, one of the stalwart early clinical pharmacy leaders. Pharmacists working in the Indian Health Service then and still today have independent authority to take care of patients as primary care providers. And so I went back to Auburn again for my last 2 quarters and graduated in March of 1980 and completed my term as SAFA president in May of 1980. I went to work, and I think I want to stop and go to the next slide and share a little bit about the lessons learned all along this seemingly long and winding road. Next slide. Very good. So never say never, because you really don't know if you're going to be in the right place unless you've tried it. Now, one of my issues was every time I tried something, is that right? Is that the next slide? Thank you. I loved it and I thought I would like to do it. And so when I finished 4 internships and my rotation at the VA hospital, I went, oh my gosh. But I want you to get involved, as many of you have through the IVPN Student Club, as quickly as you possibly can in professional organizations. And I know that travel is limited and there's tremendous financial issues at play in your country right now. But a lot of these opportunities can be done virtually. And I strongly recommend that you do so. Listen to your upperclassmen and say yes. Yes, I'll come to this meeting. Yes, I'll join this committee. Yes, yes, yes. Pharmacy's options now, as I mentioned a minute ago, are greater now than ever. But please, 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 please don't stop your engagement upon graduation. When I was student APHA President-elect Iannarelli and I took the CEO of APHA to lunch. He had been CEO at that point for about 20 years, and he was a little bit of a formidable character. And we asked him, what could student APHA do for the profession and for APHA? And his answer, I'll never forget. He said, you could fill the Manhattan phone book, which of course was about as thick as a phone book could be at that time. Most of you are saying, what's a phone book? But at any rate, he said, you could fill the Manhattan phone book with the names of students who fell off the face of organized pharmacy as soon as they graduated. If you could turn that problem around, pharmacy would be terrific. We're still working on it. It's not done yet. And the networks that you'll establish from your student days, your classmates, your organizational colleagues and friends, an international set of colleagues are absolutely essential. Next slide, please. We'll make sure I'm... So I realized that a bee farm would not be enough for what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted a post-BS PharmD, an MBA, a master's degree, but one thing I knew for sure, I never planned to get a PhD, but never say never. I went to the University of Minnesota, registered to get a master's degree, but they had this interesting program called the Kellogg Pharmaceutical Clinical Scientist Program, which at the time was very unique because pharmacy administration at the time had really focused on marketing and management more so than changing practice. And this program had been recommended in an AACP national report on the future of pharmacy that we needed people who were as comfortable at the bedside as at the bench, if you will. So clinical scientists. I had learned through my activity in APHA that geriatric medication use was a real problem in our society, and it still is a worldwide problem. And so my passion became taking care of older people and helping them improve their health through the best use of medications. That was the first faculty position, as Nazreen mentioned, at the University of Minnesota. And it was actually created by two of my mentors, a physician who worked at a multi-specialty group practice and the dean of the College of Pharmacy at the time. And so I spent 2 years there in that first position before I changed to Samford for my first academic leadership position. Was that a little bit early? Probably. But as it turned out, it worked just fine to have spent 7.5 years as a faculty member, 5.5 of those as an administrator. And then I transitioned to work at the American Pharmacists Association, doing that for 10 years, followed by 20 at AACP. Next slide, please. As I was really thinking about how I was going to organize this part of the presentation, I had what I would call an aha moment. As I mentioned, I had always planned to be a teacher, but an elementary school teacher. And what I realized is that I have always been a teacher, whether that was in a formal academic position, whether that was in my position at APHA, where I was doing education of pharmacists, student pharmacists, non-pharmacists, about the roles that pharmacists can and should be playing in healthcare. And then obviously for 20 years as the CEO of AACP, I helped to shepherd along a lot of changes, including the move to the all PharmD back early in my career at AACP. It's been a lovely career. I wouldn't have changed a single thing about it. I stay attached in some way, well, now literally attached to AACP forever as CEO Emerita, which is an honor and a privilege. But I'm also able to do things like this webinar. I'm going in just a couple of weeks to University of California, Irvine to participate as their white coat keynote speaker. And it just goes on and on and on. But I'm only doing what I prefer to be doing, hence the term preferment rather than retirement. I think we can take the slides down now as we transition to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Dr. May, for your enlightening presentation. This was excellently received by our audience and kept them eager to know more from you.
Okay, well, let's tell them some more.
With that, if I may, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
The first thing that comes to my mind is that, could you please share with us the core values or principle that have guided you throughout your career and life journey in the pharmacy profession?
Yes, I sort of mentioned it, that what I realized as I was thinking about leaving academia and was saying, well, what of all of the options that are available to me would help me to know I was in the right position? And so my core value is, as long as what I was doing was contributing to improving the use of medicines, whether that was locally, at the state level, nationally, or internationally, I knew that I was in a position that was appropriate for me. So improving medication use is really job one. Back only in this April, I learned a term that I wanted to share with the audience today, because I think you can put it into your planning for your future. The term is ikigai, Ikigai. And some of you may be familiar with this. At some point, I'm going to pull down the graphic that you can find on, if you put Ikigai into Google, you'll be able to learn more. There's lots of books on Ikigai, but very simple. It's the intersection of 4 intersecting circles. Circle number 1 is that which you are good at. Circle number 2 is what you're passionate about. I'm passionate about pharmacy and about making medication use better. Circle number 3 is, this is something the world needs. And too much of the world doesn't actually recognize that they need the services that clinically trained pharmacists can offer. But that's not for a lack of trying of every organization, every school of pharmacy worldwide to get the non-pharmacy community to understand the value that pharmacists bring to the healthcare delivery system. And if you're good at it, passionate about it, the word needs it, the 4th circle is that you can be paid to deliver it. And the intersection between those circles is Ikigai. And what I have come to appreciate is I have been privileged to work in that intersection all of my career in pharmacy. And that's pretty astonishing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mean. That was an insightful response and inspiring for all of us. I saw some of the attendees, they know the Ikigai. She's great.
Yes.
It's clear that your experiences have been rich with insight that have guided you along the way, and that will undoubtedly offer valuable perspective for all of us. Building on that, I'd like to delve into another aspect of your expertise. You have had an outstanding career where you have excelled in pharmacy, education, and advocacy. Could you share some of your thoughts on the intersection of these areas and how they contribute to the improvement of the society as a whole?
It really is incumbent upon people in practice, people in education, to work together to become leading advocates for advancing the role of pharmacists in healthcare across the spectrum of all of the places where patients are taken care of. That also includes scientists who create new knowledge and need to disseminate that knowledge into practice and education as proactively as they possibly can. And I would observe that until possibly even the COVID pandemic, we were not working together as effectively as we might. And there was a really remarkable convergence of advocacy organizations and activity right from the very beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, when someone recognized that individual pharmacy organizations in the United States were working to develop a perspective on what pharmacists could contribute in the pandemic. And Chad Wars from the Long-Term Care Organization suggested that we all get together, 15 different organizations, all working together, and our government affairs people worked between our weekly touch base meetings and very quickly came up with this powerful statement about what pharmacists could contribute in the pandemic. And then again, we worked together to get that statement out as far and as wide as we possibly could, to the White House, to every member of Congress, Senate and House of Representatives, to the head of HHS and CDC, to all of the state government people who were going to be making some really important decisions about immunization authority and access to tests and treatment as things progressed. We got the attention of all of those people, and as a result, pharmacists administered the majority of immunizations in the United States and to a great extent worldwide. And so I think that's just a message about, if we work together, we will go farther. Might take a little bit longer to reach consensus. And the academic community has a lot of cachet because we are often considered less biased than some of the practice organizations that obviously work for the best interest of their members. So does AACP. But individual academics come with degrees, they come with positions of honor, definitely have to be involved in proactive advocacy.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate your thorough explanation. And as you mentioned, the evolution, the interconnectedness of these fields, I'm certain our audience is eager to learn more about the evolution of pharmacy education. With your extensive experience, how have you seen the pharmacy education evolve over the years? And what are some of the challenges and opportunities?
You know, the evolution over the 50 years since next year will be 50 years since I started pre-pharmacy. I know I don't look like it, but 50
You
years
definitely don't.
has gone fast. The PharmD was rarely pursued by students at that point in time. I call them the crazy schools of pharmacy in California, actually implemented the PharmD in the 60s, well before everyone else began to. But it was important that the people who graduated from those early PharmD programs graduated just in time, because in the 70s, there was a federal law that awarded what was called capitation dollars to the schools of the health professions to increase their enrollment. But the capitation dollars for pharmacy schools were also tied to increasing the clinical content of pharmacy education. I had exactly two pharmacotherapy classes, 2 quarters. Think about how much you get in your PharmD programs today. I mean, there's just apples and oranges comparison. So over time, there had been recommendations as far back as the 1940s in the United States that pharmacy ought to be earning the doctorate education, and that education should be focused on clinical pharmacy practice delivery. I call it the 50-year debate that ended just in time, so that by the late 1990s, the accrediting body had indicated that they were going to revise the accrediting standards that had covered both the bachelor's degree and the PharmD degree. And when they came out with the new standard, it was only going to be for 1 degree, and that was going to be the PharmD. And at that point, the opposition to eliminating the bachelor's degree, which had been fierce, especially among chain pharmacy leaders. They believed that a chain pharmacist didn't need to have a PharmD degree, that a bachelor's degree was just fine. Well, we ignored that. And since 2004, every graduate of a school and college of pharmacy in the United States under our accrediting standard has been a PharmD. And what you've seen about that over time, new clinical practice opportunities were invented, oftentimes by faculty, but then were replicated in the private sector by hospitals and health systems, by community pharmacies. There is now the Community Pharmacy Enhanced Services Network in the United States, where mostly independent pharmacists, but not only independent pharmacies, are offering a full range of clinical pharmacy services and are increasingly being paid for the delivery of those, not just for immunizations, but for tests and for initiating therapy. Hormonal contraceptives, as an example, smoking cessation, a lot of public health services that are increasingly being offered. So yes, you've seen a tremendous sea change in pharmacy education over these last 50 years that in turn has had enormous impact on the evolution of the practice of pharmacy in the United States and well beyond.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amin. Definitely, it shows how dynamic this field is and it's continually growing. Now I want to move on forward. I want to ask you, as a founding board member and current president of the Alliance for Integrated Medication Management, Could you please elaborate on the importance of integrated medication management in healthcare and share your insight on how you see the role of pharmacists evolving in this broader healthcare system, especially in areas like integrated medication management and patient-centered care? It will also be great to know your perspective on fostering innovation in this context and in pharmacy education as well.
Yeah, we really need to move the needle faster and farther to achieve effective integration of medication management in any context of patient care, or I should say every context of patient care. There are such unmet healthcare needs in our society. We are grappling with unequal access to healthcare, especially for people of color, and it has created tremendous health disparities that cost our healthcare system in the United States. You know, it's currently a $4 trillion healthcare system, and it's estimated that we are wasting $500 million a year. No, $500 billion a year, $500 billion of that $4 trillion by avoidable medication use problems, whether that's non-adherence or untreated medical indications or indications that aren't being treated with the most effective therapy. And when pharmacists, it's extraordinarily well documented that when pharmacists are doing those types of interventions, people are healthier, the healthcare system saves money, people save money, patients are happier, other healthcare providers who are working with those pharmacists are happier and less stressed. So it's the quadruple aim that integrating medication management into ambulatory practice, community practice, inpatient practice, long-term care, and into value-based care. What's happening in our country right now is that we are stuck, too many, in the fee-for-service payment model, which lacks the incentives that the value-based payment model or pay-for-performance model actually incentivizes. And it's in those value-based care delivery systems that you're seeing the more rapid uptake of integrated medication management. And the Alliance for Integrated Medication Management actually was born out of a federal project that was integrating medication management into community health networks, federally qualified health centers that provide care for the underserved by and large. And one of the faculty members from that project, Todd Sorensen, at the University of Minnesota, graduate and faculty member and past president of AACP, at the recommendation of the federal government, established the Alliance as an independent, not-for-profit organization, entity. And it's been a privilege to be involved in that from the outset.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mean. This is so enlightening and inspiring as well. Now I want to move on to a more personal aspect of your journey. Your career has been marked by remarkable and outstanding achievements. And we're eager to learn more about accomplishments that hold a special place in your heart. Could you share with us the one that are dearest to you?
Yeah, I thought about that. And there's probably two that I would hold up. Because one is inside academic pharmacy, and then the other one is beyond. And it's so important for us to work beyond our narrow areas of pharmacy throughout our career. So the one in AACP that really stands out to me as making a huge difference was the establishment of the Academic Leadership Fellows Program, or ALFP. My first president was Barbara Wells. She was the dean at the University of Mississippi at the time. And every AACP president comes in passionate about something in particular. And Barbara was concerned and passionate about leadership in academic pharmacy. She said, listen, I'm getting older. A lot of my peers are getting older. We're beginning to see the expansion of the pharmacy enterprise, and schools of pharmacy need not just CEO deans, but they need assistant and associate deans. They need department chairs, and all of them need to be trained how to be better academic leaders. And so in 2004-05, we enrolled our first cohort in the ALFP program. And next month, within just a few days, we will be welcoming the 20th cohort of ALFP. And we are going to have a huge celebration because we have graduated now close to 600 academic leadership fellows. And they are deans of all levels, they are department chairs, they are provosts, there are presidents of universities who have been ALFP graduates. And so that is a enormous win for those fellows, for their institutions, for AACP, and actually the world, because we have better, stronger leaders than we would have if ALFP had not been created. And then the outside one that I am the most proud of was the establishment of the Interprofessional Education Collaborative, or IPEC. Back in about, lose track of time, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, maybe it was about 2008, I was called to a meeting with the president of the Medicine Association counterpart, the American Association of American Medical Colleges. And Daryl was relatively new. They had just done a new strategic plan. And he said, Lucinda, I know pharmacy is way ahead of the rest of the world in terms of interprofessional learning. It's in your accreditation standards, while it's not in most of the rest of our accreditation standards at this time. We can't lead the IPE effort, but we want to help get it off the ground. And he assigned his number 2 to call on 4 other associations: the Osteopathic Medical Association, the Nursing Education Association, the Schools of Public Health, and the Schools of Dentistry. And the 6 of us got together and agreed that while IPE might not be in everyone's accreditation standards at this time, it was essential. The Institute of Medicine had said so, and other people had, or other esteemed bodies. The World Health Organization back in 1994 said that interprofessional learning was essential. And so IPEC was born first very informally, and then we incorporated and became a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. And today, 21 national health professions associations are members of IPEC. We've just finished revising the core competencies that you can find at ipecollaborate.org. And we've done a lot of faculty development, a lot of advocacy. We did a scoping review of the literature that demonstrated that if you teach someone how to practice interprofessionally, it impacts their practice and it impacts patients' health. So all of that is just fabulous, and it's a legacy that I'm proud to have had a part of.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amin, for sharing those heartfelt accomplishments. I would like to tell you, I've read about AFP, and it's a remarkable program. And as you mentioned, with the interprofessional education, it optimizes patient care, and itself grows the person himself as a healthcare professional. So it's like a win-win situation, definitely.
Nazreen, it looks like there may be some questions in the Q&A box. Should we go there?
Yeah, I have just one before we go.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, speaking of balance, one of the challenges many professionals face nowadays is finding the right balance between a successful career and personal pursuit. Given your multi-phase journey, could you provide some insight into how you managed to find that balance? And what advice do you have for those striving for a similar one?
So the term that I am hearing more and more frequently is work-life integration. And as nice as that might sound, maybe that sounds easier than work-life balance. You have to be very intentional about it, because it would be very easy to get imbalanced. And sometimes you have to stop and say, I need to dedicate a little bit more time right now to my family. My children are school age, etc. One piece of advice that I have is marry well. And my husband just chuckled at that. Dan was a Minnesota graduate, pharmacy graduate, that I met while I was teaching there. And he spent a lot of his career in hospital pharmacy, specifically in transplant and ICU. And that's a pretty intensive career commitment. So for the first 10 years, we probably were a bit imbalanced, as each of us was progressing, gaining reputation, gaining knowledge, skills, etc. When I moved to Washington and to the APHA position, Dan very seamlessly transitioned to a hospital pharmacy where he did his transplant and really began expanding his clinical pharmacy services. He did some time as a consultant, which gave us flexibility when we adopted our 2 children from Russia in 1997. And then the balancing act really became, a little bit more complicated. But Dan was able to manage the end of the day, which I had a very difficult time doing in association work. And he oversaw homework and often had the boys fed by the time I got home. And then he actually, in 2013, decided that he was avoiding a call to ministry. And he made the decision to go to seminary. And so at that point, he worked a little from time to time. He found he couldn't work full time and go to seminary almost full time. And so he finished his career, but he promised me he was not going to be a pastor, so that I would never be a pastor's wife. Well, wrong. He is now in his second assignment as a United Methodist minister, serving 2 beautiful congregations aside Lake Anna in Mineral, Virginia, population 500. And I am a pastor's wife at not 1, but 2 lovely congregations. So it's a journey rather than a destination. And at every turn, you just say, well, what's in your best interest from a professional vantage point? What's in our best interest from a personal vantage point? And sometimes there has to be trade-offs, negotiation, but I wouldn't trade anything. 36 years in November, we've been married.
Congratulations in advance.
Yes.
I hope many, many years to come. I hope.
Many, many. We made a contract for 100.
I hope 150, more. So thank you so much. This is a reminder for all of us that a successful career can indeed coexist with personal passion and pursue.
Yeah,
I can see there's a lot of engagement from the audience, and I was wondering, can we take a couple of those questions, Doctor?
Sure, absolutely.
I'd now like to invite Mr. Mesh to pose some of the questions that have come in from our audience.
Thank you, Dr. Nasreen, for giving me the floor. And thank you, Dr. Lucinda, for this wonderful webinar. We truly learned a lot, and I was intrigued throughout the whole webinar from A to Z. So Ranam Haidi asks, thank you so much for covering this topic in such a fascinating storytelling way. I have been personally involved in pharmacy associations and went through a long burnout period. What tips do you have for students to help them avoid this state? Thank you. I think she was referring to the part where you kept saying, say yes and yes and yes to everything.
Yes. There are limits. There are limits. And so I think I can honestly say that I don't believe I have ever been truly burnt out. But I do understand how that happens. And I see it. I mean, we've measured it in pharmacy and in other healthcare delivery systems. And I think we can't understate the impact of the pandemic. Pharmacists were the heroes, and yet it was at a great personal cost. To be open when doctor's offices weren't open, dentist offices weren't open, emergency departments were overflowing. I mean, it is very hard. And so I think attempting to find your ikigai is part of a solution to avoiding burnout, because if you're working in your passion place and you're good at it, even though you're going to gain skills and proficiency, you know, if you start in a new career opportunity, I think that helps. But sometimes I have a friend who's working in a chain pharmacy in inner city New York City, and he is burnt out, and he has actually applied for a leave of absence, paid leave of absence under our Family Medical Leave Act, probably for 4 to 6 weeks, to just try and get over feeling anxious and frustrated about having to go to work in those conditions every day. It is very difficult. And I know some people feel that they are very locked into what they're doing, whether that's financially or geographically. But I hope that people recognize it and take action to minimize the negative impact of burnout, not only on you, but also on your family and on the patients that you're serving.
Yes, I truly agree with that answer. Once someone focuses where their burnout is coming from, then they can not easily, but they can try their best to resolve it.
That's right.
Thank you. So another question from Huda Barakat. She has a small question. Have you ever had a moment where you were like, I give up, I don't want this anymore? If yes, what motivated you into pushing forward? And if not, what was your inspiration?
You know, after 10 years at APHA, the American Pharmacists Association answers the pharmacy 911 emergency phone line. And there's not actually one, but when something untoward is happening in pharmacy, it tends to cross the threshold of 2215 Constitution Avenue, the headquarters of APHA on the National Mall. And some of the problems weren't fixable easily. Our pharmacy payment system is terminally broken. And there's only so much that APHA can actually do about that because of antitrust issues and concerns. And so at 10 years of trying to solve the world problems of pharmacy, I was probably pretty close to being at my wit's end. But it just so happened that the AACP position became available, and I was asked by quite a number of my academic friends to consider putting my name into that search, which initially I was reticent to do. I didn't think about being a CEO of a national association. But I was finally persuaded, you should do it, Lucinda, you should try, and the rest is history. So yes, I was at a point, I think, of being close to being frustrated with my my current position, but a change came just in the nick of time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lucinda. I hope that motivates not only like everyone, and like hope it motivates everyone as much as it motivated me, to be honest. So thank you for the question, Huda. I have a personal question from my side. For pharmacy students and early career professionals, what essential skills and mindsets do you believe, with your expertise, are crucial for success and have meaningful impact in the evolving healthcare landscape?
Yeah, I think the mindset is never stop learning, because, you know, many more drugs have been brought to market since I finished my bachelor's degree in pharmacy. And if I had remained in practice rather than in my administrative roles, I would have needed to have vastly exceeded the 15 required hours of continuing education a year in order to stay current and able to deliver quality pharmacy services. Your byline of excellence and innovation in pharmacy really ought to be the motivator for everybody, because we need a lot more innovation, even than what has occurred over the 50 years of my remarkable journey in pharmacy, because we are not where we want to be yet, where every pharmacist feels like he or she is utilizing their education, knowledge, skills, and commitment to patient care at the very highest level of their education and degree and licensure.
Well, Dr. Main, thank you so much for that answer. I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Nasreen Murad.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amin. That was very inspiring and informative. As we conclude this webinar, any final thoughts that you want to share with us?
Well, I appreciate it. And Nazreen, if there were more questions in the chat, don't hesitate to send them to me, and I can do some answers to questions that weren't asked, okay? Because we did run out of time.
I know.
All I want to say is what I just said to Majli's question. Never, ever, ever give up on excellence, no matter where your pharmacy degree and career takes you. And please attempt in every setting that you are in to innovate, because there is still progress that awaits us as we convince the world that if they haven't integrated pharmacists and medication management into the delivery system that they're part of, then their delivery system is deficient. And we can all tell that story with data. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. That's totally enlightening, Dr. Main. I want to emphasize our appreciation for your time and dedication. Your insights today will undoubtedly inspire growth and excellence among all. We do hope to have the privilege of welcoming you back in the near future as we explore more topics in pharmacy. Thank you so much. And for now, thank you all for joining us today for this thought-provoking webinar. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Being in touch with you in the future.
I hope so. I trust I heard Dr. Dan.
Yes,
right?
you did. Yes, you did hear Dr. Dan. Here he is.
Hello. Send me his video. Hello, how are you?
Good
We heard you. We heard you today.
Chuckling.
I
Yes.
tried to stay in the background.
And to keep the dog quiet, which he was able to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for today. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Hope to see you soon.